Thank you, Excellencies, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad that Northeast is getting a platform where we can link with ASEAN, not only with the rest of India, but with ASEAN. And we are overflowing with emotions and ideas, but unfortunately, as it always happens, Northeast gets cramped into between India and the ASEAN in that corridor, because we are at where South Asia and Southeast Asia meets. And I will rush through the points. Happily, Mr. Nishimura has mentioned some of the very vital points that I would have liked to emphasize. Thank you, Mr. Nishimura. I will come to that very quickly. Happily, the perception about look-east policy in Northeast and from the look-east policy side, there is a convergence, naturally, because you cannot look at the East without looking at the Northeast. And this is where both the regions meet. But the perception being so, the successive prime ministers have been talking that Northeast is a breezehead to the East, that it has to play the arrowhead role in the development of the look-east policy, etc., etc. And Northeast has been looking at the look-east policy to see that it will come back to the position of economic eminence that it had before partition of India, when Northeast was much above the national average. Today we are at the bottom. So we wanted something to get out of that. In spite of that, in spite of this convergence, in spite of this feeling that we are together, and in spite of the fact that so many schemes have been taken up for connectivity and other things around Northeast, there is a feeling that nothing has happened. That feeling is in the Northeast, and the vision document of the Northeastern Council says Northeast look-east policy is just a mere slogan. Why it is so? It is primarily because there is a two-way gap in understanding. From the Northeast side, there is a gap. They feel that in the process of Northeast is not involved in the process of decision making, in monitoring and implementation, so they don't know what is happening. And on the Government of India side, and the look-east policy has been often talked about, is that while there are a large number of demands about the Northeast emanating from the Northeastern region, no cogent, integrated and coordinated articulation of the needs of the Northeast expectations has evolved. Therefore, I feel that there is a great need for an institutional mechanism to bridge that gap and for going forward, and that mechanism should ensure that there is a continuous process of dialogue and development with the Northeast, and through this MEA, Northeast would link up with ASEAN through that institutional mechanism. Why Northeast looks to the look-east policy? Firstly, just like India had looked at policy of the East as an economic space, same is true of the Northeast. But if we look at why, it is much beyond that, because there are a lot of socio-cultural and economic factors. The Northeast sees the Southeast as its natural geographical extension, like the old spice route which has touched Northeast. Secondly, it expects that the shared historical, ethnic and cultural links with Southeast Asia could be leveraged for greater trade and tourism. Connectivity is not seen only in physical terms. Connectivity in the Northeast is seen more as connectivity of minds and ideas. And third, it feels that the greater connectivity with Southeast Asian regions will end the Northeast economic imprisonment and isolation created by the partition of India. The Northeast looks not only for integration with Southeast Asia or South Asia, but also through look-east policy to restore the severed links to the rest of India through projects which gives it access to the ports and the sea. And therefore, Myanmar and Bangladesh play a very important role in evolution of the look-east policy so far as Northeast is concerned. It is seen as a re-strategizing our relationship with our immediate neighbors. And the most important thing that the Northeast looks for the look-east policy is that it is strategic and security aspects. It expects that the immediate borders of the Northeast will be borders of prosperity and not borders of insurgency, insecurity, smuggling and drug trafficking. In brief, I would like to mention what and for External Affairs Minister had said in Shillong, that geography may not be seen as an obstacle for Northeast. Geography can be made an opportunity for the Northeast. That's what we expect from the look-east policy. Before I go to the one or two specifics, I would like to take 2 points on which we feel that something can be done through ASEAN and the look-east policy. While the historical and cultural links, which are considered to be very strong, and the Northeast feels very strongly, that feeling is shared more in Northeast than in Southeast Asia. There is a lack of understanding in Southeast Asia about these very strong links that we have with the Northeast. I think this has to be bridged. Perhaps establishment of a nodal institution in the Northeast. We have talked about a large number of institutions being created. I think we should create an institution in the Northeast which will continuously carry on these cultural, ethnic and historical links, and will link up with the ASEAN and also have links with the ASEAN institutions which can carry forward all the time. Secondly, as Mr. Nishimura had been talking about, there are too many organizations, too many schemes, too many players in the low-cost policy, and there is a great need for synergy. Synergy with all those players and synergy with the Northeast activities linking to the those that is happening outwards. I will give just one example. The Kaladan multimodal project is supposed to be extremely important for the Northeast. It is, perhaps, because it will link up through the seas to Mizoram. But until we have Mizoram connected very well by road, air, rail to the rest of Northeast, that Kaladan multimodal project will remain just an utopia. Coming to the trade, the one area that we talk all about is trade. What is the picture? The picture is very mixed. There are 4 types of trade facilitation going on. One is what we call in more, just commercial exchanges, which is primarily third country products coming into India, and perhaps Northeast is not benefiting at all. On the other hand, border trade is a very, very, very important factor for Northeast, and in recent times, much improvement in facilitation, infrastructure development, etc. have taken place. More items are now available, but there is a great demand from the Northeast to expand that border trade facilitation and the areas to larger areas. And there is a feeling that the informal border trade is so vibrant that for people-to-people contact is best achieved by expanding that informal border trade, which is supposed to be very, very... I suggest that we have a very thorough study of what the informal border trade is and draw up a concrete plan for the next 5 or 10 years, what needs to be done, and that will be the first step for India's Northeast linking up to the... 2 things which need attention there is that most of the border trade has been primarily on primary goods, and that there is no value addition. So the Northeast is not getting the maximum benefit that it can get from the border trade that is happening, and that's an area which needs extreme attention. Coming to formal trade, the picture is very, very mixed. And if we can see that the ASEAN trade is going up very high, but the sad part is that the Northeast this contribution to the ASEAN trade increase has been going down as per many studies. Now, it is quite understandable because the ASEAN demand may not match what Northeast can supply, and there is therefore a need that we study what the demand pattern of the ASEAN region for export from our region is, and how much we can match Northeast to those demand patterns. I think there should be a study on that part, and that will be very valuable. Secondly, it is necessary to make a planned, professional and assessment of the comparative advantage of the Northeast. What are you going to sell? What is our supply position? Can we sell something? We yet don't know what actually we want to sell. As a Northeast as a whole, I think we should make a complete study about our comparative advantage. Following from that, I think I would like to emphasize what the Prime Minister has said in the last ASEAN meeting, that we must have some concept of economic zones, so that why we need in the Northeast economic zones is that what Mr. Nishimura also had talked about, which can provide incentives, marketing, transport support, so that Northeast can get over the problems of transport costs and the problems of low productivity and high cost of production. We have to be competitive, and that competitiveness must come professionally managed institutions. Our efforts so far has been ad hoc and disjointed. I would like to say that we should go stronger on that. Coming to the next one, which has been talking all the time about, is tourism. Our greatest hope has been pinned on ASEAN Highway, but 11,000 kilometers of that ASEAN Highway, according to UNESCAP, is below specification. Below, it is in a sad state of affairs. It has remained just a road for car rallies, not for the dream that we have for tourism and trade development. What we need to do is that road has to be made a gateway for tourism with lots of tourism hubs, lots of wayside facilities, lots of transport facilities, airport facilitation from sideways, etc. And more important, what we have done is that we as yet do not know what are the potential of that ASEAN highway. There should be a study for the potential of ASEAN highway for so far as Northeast is concerned. And thirdly, we have to do a lot of work ourselves. The Northeast has not been linked to the ASEAN highway on the tourism side. The tourism potential of Northeast have not been linked to the ASEAN highway. Nothing has been happening on that. That's why we need great importance of airports, airport infrastructure. You will believe that the nearest airport in Kolkata gets only 4% of the total arrivals to India, whereas 97% of the tourists to India come by air. And with Kolkata being in a 4%, Northeast is totally blank so far as airport infrastructure is concerned. There are 1 million tourists from Thailand coming to Myanmar for Buddhist circuits. And that 1 million can be tapped by us along with Manipur's what we have got of the nostalgia of the Second World War. We have the nostalgia of Azad Hind Force. Those all can be linked and we can do that. We need ASEAN and the look-east policy to look more strongly at what we call the air connectivity. There should be a three-pronged approach. One is to make Thailand, Myanmar, Guwahati linked, and linked with Bodh Gaya and the very beautiful Buddhist sites in Orissa. That is one. Then we have to have linked with Nepal and the backward linkages with Nepal and Bhutan, and also Imphal linking all these areas. That is a very primary consideration. Then, of course, we need very strong, seamless integration of the northeastern states within themselves so that they are linked. After being linked themselves, they can be linked to the circuits with Myanmar, Bangladesh, and others. I think that is very primary importance, so we should get attention. On tourism, two broad studies should be helpful. First, a profile of the demand of the ASEAN regions. Secondly, tourism potential of the ASEAN highway. And then the linking of tourism. And, of course, Northeast has to do a lot. I will not like to take much more time, but just like to mention one of the primary aspects which is extremely important from the Northeast, which can change completely the Northeast perspective, which is the waterways development. Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy link perhaps could be what is the greater Mekong area we have been talking about. If we can link that up, Brahmaputra linkages to the seaport actually can open all routes to the sea, saving cost, improvement in flood controls, and a boost to tourism, and that would be the greatest thing that can happen because of the low-caste policy so far as Northeast is concerned. I'm afraid this area has not received as much attention as the road connectivity, which has been receiving attention. And the last point, I would like to say that Northeast thinks greatly about the Steelwell Road. And that Steelwell Road has been on the back burner primarily because geopolitical reasons. I think we have to find out some ways of mixing geopolitical compulsions along with our need for the Northeast area. I had a lot more to say, but since we have time, I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.